pilot who got lost and landed at a strange airport, only to discover that the plane parked at the airport he had never seen before, not to mention not of his time. Soon airport security arrives, stopped him. They kept looking at him with strange eyes. They said, "How can you fly such an old plane?" When confronted with the officer's words, Dirk was puzzled by what he heard. He learned from them that this was a French airfield, and he was a British pilot. Obviously, he was in the wrong place, but he also marveled that their technology was so advanced. He was then taken to the airport security office in a daze. General George then questioned him. Dirk replied that he was a second lieutenant in the Royal Flying Corps. George felt very strange about Dirk's behavior and speech. The so-called Royal Flying Corps no longer existed. I thought he was flying around the area or making movies, but Dirk faced these queries and had no idea what was going on. See, Dirk and his own communication is simply the answer to the question. George acted helplessly when the two heard Dirk say he intended to land in the British Royal Army 56 base, but ended up landing by mistake. When this statement was made, Will next to him felt very surprised, and George also felt strange. Will started to look at Dirk and asked him what day it was.
March the 5th. What year? 1917.
1917.
Dirk was very determined to say yes. Will's eyes stared straight at him. He wondered if the Dirk in front of him was mentally ill. Dirk said, "Isn't he?" Answering Dirk's confusion, he told Dirk that it was March 5th, 1959. Dirk was chagrined to hear this. He just froze in place, thinking what the hell is going on here? How could there be a 42-year difference? He thought it must be a joke, but seeing the serious expressions of the two men, Will also shook his head to indicate that it was not. This made Dirk really could not understand what was wrong. He couldn't help but wonder if it was true. George expressed his opinion. That is, he would not believe what Dirk said. At this point, Dirk was getting a little emotional. He told both men in no uncertain terms he was in 1917 when he took off this morning. There was no mistaking it. Suddenly he was drawn to the sound of planes roaring outside his window. Looking out the window at the big, modern airplanes, and looking at the big clouds in the sky, he seemed to think of something. He said to himself that he was flying through that cloud of rocks, but he didn't hear the sound of the engine. It was like being sucked into a vacuum. He also remembered some previous rumors. There was a pilot who was flying through a cloud, and the plane, for some reason, just disappeared. George said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Seeing that he was still not trusted, Dirk swore that he was on patrol with his teammate McLaren, but George suddenly said McLaren's full name. This surprised Dirk. George, however, told him sternly, McLaren is their air marshal. He was now flying to this base. He'll be making an inspection later. He also warned Dirk that if he lied, it would end badly for him. Dirk certainly didn't believe in such coincidences.
But that's impossible.
Why is it impossible?
Because he's dead.
Pilot ordered to confirm Dirk's identity. They identified all the objects he carried with him, but found that they were as real as they were fake. It seems to have been carefully designed. Will didn't think it was a hoax, not to mention a prank to fool people. George, however, was more prudent, decided to wait until McKellen arrived to make a decision. Then Will found Dirk. At this point, Dirk realizes that he is being held captive. He became upset and said he was leaving now. He didn't want to meet with McKellen. When Will saw this, he thought that Dirk had a hidden agenda. That's why he was so scared. So he starts to psychologize Dirk. He asked him if he really knew McLaren, but Dirk didn't answer. He just said the old leaden bottom. Dirk explained it was a private joke between him and McKellen. When asked why he was sure McKellen was dead, Dirk replied, when they were on the air search mission together, McLaren was surrounded by 7 German fighters. He himself was surrounded by 3 fighters. With such a disparity in power, McLaren was certain to die. Will told Dirk that McLaren was not dead. He went on to become the best pilot of the Blitz. He saved many innocent civilians. That's why he was named a combat hero. The story of McLaren kept coming to his ears. As if realizing something, Dirk suddenly got up and tried to escape, but he was stopped by a responsive guard in Will. He was pinned down and pushed back into the room. After all this commotion, Dirk became agitated. He said he couldn't see McKellen and had to leave immediately. Will said, "No way," because Will thought he could reveal the truth as soon as McKellen arrived. To confirm that Dirk was not lying, Dirk was very nervous at this point. He obviously didn't want McKellen to see him. He was ashamed that he was a coward and had been running away in disguise when McKellen was surrounded by enemy planes. Instead of rescuing him, he was so scared that he chose to run away. That's what brought him to this base. He now feels guilty and believes that he indirectly killed McKellen.
But he didn't die!
Well, I can't understand that!
Well, maybe he got help somehow.
Dirk couldn't believe this hypothesis. He thought it was completely impossible, because there was no one else in the mission area for 50 miles. He also realized that it was no coincidence that he landed here. There seemed to be a hidden agenda. Maybe time had given him a second chance. That's how he knew that McKellen had survived. In that case, he had to get out. It was the only chance he had with McKellen. If he didn't go back, McKellen wouldn't be able to come. For these arcane explanations, Will still did not agree to let go. Dirk could only continue to analyze. If McKellen didn't die 42 years ago, he saved him. Obviously these far-fetched reasons are not enough to convince Will. Instead, he thought Dirk was a madman. Seeing that communication was not possible, Dirk had no choice but to use ordered ran frantically and kept looking for his plane. When he found it, he didn't dare to delay for a moment. Quickly started started the plane's engine. That's when airport management spotted him. They came to stop him from boarding the plane, but he was knocked out. Dirk rushed into the cockpit to prepare for takeoff, but the next moment, a gun was pointed at him. It was Will, who warned him to stop flying, but Dirk is undeterred. He told Will that he had to leave. Otherwise, a lot of people would be involved, but Will still wouldn't let him go. Dirk said, "Shoot me, I'd rather die." Seeing that Dirk wasn't even afraid to die, Will's heart was still shaken. He decided to trust him. He didn't do anything to stop him, letting Dirk glide away slowly. After Dirk took off with a boost, soon disappeared in the sky. At this point, Will was at a loss, not knowing whether he was doing the right thing or the wrong thing. He went back and got a lot of criticism from George. He shouldn't have let the crazy Dirk get away. As George was about to continue his ranting and raving, Marshal McClellan arrives. In order to clear up the confusion, Will couldn't resist mentioning Dirk's name. McLaren was surprised at first, but soon he became very serious. He told the two men that Dirk had saved his life.
What? How did he save your life, sir?
McLaren recalled. He and Dirk were on an air patrol together. He was attacked by a large number of German fighters. Dirk suddenly pulled up. He disappeared into the clouds. Will said, "He got away?" McLaren said, "Yes, but he didn't expect Dirk to suddenly come back out of the clouds. He fired at the German planes. He shot down 3 enemy planes, and then he died. It was only then that Will realized. So Dirk was telling the truth." Will said, "So he's really going back?" McLaren said, "What?" In the face of McLaren's questioning, George then took out the objects left behind by Dirk. McLaren looked at it carefully and was shocked too. He said, "Where did you get these things?" George said, "It's his, because these things are indeed Dirk's own." At this point McKellen did not know what had happened, so he loudly questioned the two men about the situation. At this point, Will next to him told him to take it easy, and deliberately mentioned the word Old Lead Bottom. McKellen was stunned to hear this. Perhaps he would soon learn that Dirk had been here, but no one knew how soon Dirk would reappear.